Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
DKWilkinson.com professional Australian voiceovers are proud to be a four-wheeled sponsor of Negative Camber. DKWilkinson.com. With over 10,000 commercials voiced and an international award for a commercial advert. Commercial and corporate, we do make a difference. Phone messages for under $10. DKWilkinson.com. Your professional wordsmith.
This podcast is proudly supported by Matt Hall from DR Kart South Australia, HandyPay, SA's leading personal lender, Patrizzi Course, and Tindo Solar, Australia's only solar panel manufacturer.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. Alongside me is my co-host Lee Harrison and inaugural V8 Development Series champion, the turkey alongside me, Dean Canto.
Christmas turkey, that is.
Christmas turkey.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, mate. What are you doing with these days? I mean, the last time we saw you in a racetrack was a couple of years ago at Bathurst. What's Dean Canto doing now?
I guess now that we've got 2 years of COVID, not really being able to travel, but we've got the awesome, the Bend facility that the Shins have built for us, and a lot of Adelaide guys are car crazy. So got a core group of guys I do a lot of driver training with, fair bit of car preparation, and there's a lot more interest now in guys having dedicated track cars, and I facilitate prepping their cars, taking them up to the track, and making sure they have a good day. It also improve their driving.
Sure.
Have you found that that's really taken off since COVID? Like, I went away obviously just before COVID, and it wasn't a massive deal with the members' days and the open track days, but since being back it seems like they're selling out like hotcakes, and you can't get enough spots for them.
Yeah, look, I think it's slowly been building, but COVID obviously, I think, sped up that process. So a lot of people obviously not being able to travel, realising that there's a lot more involved in having fun, and so they've gone, well, we've got this available, seen other guys doing it, and once one starts and another one, and it just sort of snowballs from there. But definitely it has ramped up quite a lot in the last sort of 12 months. Good for me. I just wish there was more days at the Bend to facilitate it all.
Yep. Yeah. Does that mean that your sort of your enduro driving and your proper professional racing career has come to a halt, or are you back out there if they give you the call up?
Look, I had the opportunity to do Bathurst this year. I had interest from two teams, one early in the year, but again, it was, I've got a family I've got to provide for, and to go and do it and not earn income out of it is not where I'm at. It's not fair on the family. I've done it 21 times. So unless it was an opportunity that was going to further my career, then I might have jumped at it. But then later in the year, when an international driver couldn't come along, one of the teams contacted me about potentially filling that spot. But they went with a younger driver who was obviously on the way up, which I'm fine to step aside for. It doesn't bother me. I was a young guy once, and he got the opportunity. But never say never. Luke Yordan made a comeback this year after announcing retirement, and he came back. So I think experience still does count. You have a look at Holdsworth this year at Bathurst. We don't forget how to drive. I'm in something constantly anyway, driving high-speed race cars anyway. So my skills are always sharp. Yes, I'm not racing, but the whole last 12 years of my enduro career, I wasn't racing. I did the 3 enduros a year. I was always on the pace. I think my skills are still sharp, and if there was a good opportunity next year, who knows what will unfold.
I think more the preciseness is the key element that you're keeping sharp. Your racing brain and racing mentality takes a few moments to kick back on, but surely passing cars like they're standing still at the Bend keeps that passing mentality open. Yeah,
look, I guess some of the cars that my clients have, and when you go to a track day where you are approaching them at highly different speeds, it's sort of like a 12-hour scenario. So, and especially because they're not other races you're coming up against, you've got to make a judgment call. But all that driving, when I drive my clients' cars, it's not 100%, but you're still giving it a nudge and keeping those skills sharp. So, and simulator these days, I've got a reasonably good simulator at home, but I've got to try and kick my son off that. They are a good tool as well.
I got a feeling Revhead Harry had something to do with the simulating setup.
Yeah, look, Harry has made it worse for me.
Yeah.
But no, my son's got into it recently. In the last sort of 12 months, he's ramped up and he's actually doing really well. And I can't beat him anymore on iRacing, the platform he uses the most. But it's quite impressive considering he hasn't actually driven anything in real life to see his skill set on that game and how it would translate to real life driving.
Yep, because the boys were sort of at one point, getting into karting at one stage. I remember seeing some video footage of kids doing laps around Monado. What's then sort of prompted the transition into sim racing instead?
Well, my oldest has never. He's always been quite reserved, so he's always shown interest in the motorsport side of things, but doesn't like anything too risky, or hasn't liked anything too risky. And the young one is just happy to have a go at anything, and he's got no fear. So the young one said, "Oh, look, I want to have a go in a go-kart." So I was like, "Oh, we got one just to sort of speed up the process." Signed them both up. We went out to the kart track, put cones out, did a track walk. Ran through everything. My youngest one goes, I'll go first, no worries. Full throttle down the straight, didn't have a problem with that, and then spun several times, missed every apex, but was having a ball. And then the eldest one was like, okay, no one's on track, I'll go out. And I think he was like within a second and a half of what his category should be doing first time out. So he has some natural ability, but then as soon as someone else came out on the track, he came in, he didn't want to be out there with someone else. A couple of years on now, my wife stupidly asked him the other night, what do you think about racing now? Oh, maybe. So time to maybe have a look at something else. But, he's 14 now. Go-karts is probably a bit late for that. It's not far away from being able to step into a little production car or something. At the end of the other track day, he was in one of my clients' Ferraris, the race car, and backing it in the garage there, not on the track, but, the owner was happy for him to have a drive as long as I was in the passenger seat with him, but the poor little bugger's too short and can't see over the steering wheel.
Yep. So sort of like his dad then.
Yeah.
So he's not too far off of Circuit XL age. Is that something that you might consider looking at? And then I can really help him with his driving standards as well. Yeah,
look, I think I was looking at potentially just renting an 86 or something for him just to see what he's like on the circuit. I mean, he's definitely good enough on the simulator, and even like he's driving LMP2 with on iRacing, and those things don't have ABS, and he can manage lockups and all that sort of thing. So it's quite impressive. I think for him the biggest challenge will be like in a manual car, the clutch pedal has to go further away than everything else. So might have to screw some blocks of wood to his feet or something like that. But height will be his challenge, although he has had a fair bit of a growth spurt lately and he's not far away from me. So he might overtake me, but I don't like his chances because both his parents are very short.
Speaking of which then, how did you get into motor racing yourself? I mean, we've wound the clock all the way back. How did it start for you?
My father raced. I got into go-karts when I was 6, 7. Came up, through go-karts, raced against James Courtney, Mark Winterbottom, Ryan Briscoe. And at the age of 16, it was like, okay, well, get into car racing. And Mum didn't want me to go into an open cockpit car, so I went into production cars. And first race car was a Subaru WRX. Even though I missed the first round of the GT Production Championship that year, I still came second in the championship. So sort of adapted quite well. And second year of my motorsport career or car racing career, I did Super Tours. Mm-hmm. And then my third year was the Konica Series, the first year of the Konica Series. So I was fortunate enough to have someone that found some backing for us. And we bought a car from Glenn Seaton, an EL Falcon, and pretty much put fuel in that thing and tyres at it, and that was about it, and went out and won the championship. So first year at the age of 19, and then I think I was just right place, right time. Cito basically was the first guy to give me a chance. He gave me an enduro drive that year, and then following year, 2001, I drove with Jimmy Richards at Bathurst, and we finished 5th. So my third ever Bathurst in a supercar, I finished 5th, and it all went downhill from there.
I wanted to go back because we'll go to, say, Super Touring. So, because you were driving for the Peter Hills Mondeo team at that time, how did that opportunity come about, and what was it like driving one of those things?
We had mutual family friends. So Michael Massey, F1 race director, his mum was dating Peter Hills, I think, something like that. And Peter had the two Mondeos. They were outdated, the body shape, and then we had the panel shop. So we changed the shape to the later model and went racing that year with his team. Had a fair few friends help out with preparation, things like that, just to make it more cost effective, as you will.
Yep.
That was how that sort of came along, but wasn't the world's most super successful year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that culminated obviously in the wet soak Bathurst 500 that year as well, which is single driver endurance race.
In the Super Tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had massive electrical dramas, I think, with the car that year. The alternator ran off the drive shaft belt. There was lots of safety cars. I mean, that's, out of all the Bathursts I've done, that was probably one of the most torrential, wet weather ones I've ever done. But, then I think I just had a massive aquaplane coming through the chase at one point. But anyway. Yeah.
We'll head off to a break and then we'll come back and we'll get more into your V8 Supercar career. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Canto. Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. Here with Lee Harrison and also my host, or special guest, I should say, Dean Canto. You may as well be the host, mate, because I've taken one for the team. That's for you, Aaron. We've taken the hat off his head now, so he's revealing his true identity. So I'll be the turkey in this.
Hopefully, my head's not too shiny.
You've always been the turkey, mate. So it's fitting that you're now wearing the turkey leg hat.
There'd be many people on the grid and also my family that would probably agree. So, there you go. Mate, Jim Richards, you had that stint with him with GSR, I think it was, or Tickford at the time.
I don't remember what name Glenn's team was at that point in time, probably Tickford Racing, yeah.
What was it like? What's it like racing with someone of that calibre so early in your racing career?
It was pretty special. I mean, obviously Jim had so much experience and, it was my third Bathurst, but first time with a professional team. And, I mean, back then I kind of just thought, race car, that's all I was about. But, later in life you're like, wow, that was pretty special to drive with someone like Jim Richards. I actually still remember to this day during one of the pit stops when I hopped out, the seat insert fell, and Jim's just calmly picked it up, and I'm panicking. But it was very special. Jim's obviously very well established, and I think he's got the most Bathursts to date out of any driver ever. So to have that on the resume is pretty cool. Yeah,
is he? There's stories that you hear about him earning the nickname Gentleman Jim, but he's an animal behind the wheel. Is that truth?
Look, I mean, he wasn't where he was because he was a gentleman. Yes, he's a gentleman outside of a race car, but when he was a racer, he was a hard racer, and he was always at the front and very successul. So, definitely gentleman Jim outside the car, and if it needed to be, it wasn't so gentleman Jim on the racetrack. Yeah.
How did you? I mean, they were your enduro drives, but then what got you into full time?
My first full-time year with Briggs, so 2002 I was the enduro driver for them.
That was better electrical, wasn't it?
Yes, with Max Wilson. And throughout that year I went to all the rounds with the team and to be part of it all. Obviously when you're a young guy you try and hang around as much as you can and learn as much. So I did all the test days with them, things like that. And then at the end of the year, even after the enduros, I think Simon Wills was driving the Cat car that year, and John rang me up and said, "Oh, look, there's been a shortfall with Simon's payment. If you can get this much together, I'll put you in the car for the last 3 rounds." I said, "Look, thanks for the offer, but I'm not paying the drive." And then I'll find someone else. He hung up the phone. About half an hour later, he rings back. I was working at the old man's panel shop in Sydney at this point in time, so Dad's like, "Phone again, it's Briggs." Rings up, he goes, "All right, this much this time." I said, "Thank you, but no." And then rings back another hour later, "All right, how about this?" So did the last 3 rounds with them in the Cat car, and he put me in the car the following year full time. So it was a multi-year deal, but 2003 was obviously a tough year for me, first year full time, but for other reasons, teammates and things like that. You think your teammates are mates, they call them teammates, but in motorsport later on in life you realise that not so much of a teammate.
Yeah, that was what, Max Wilson?
No, Paul Radisich.
Oh, Paul Radisich, wow, okay. But 03 was also, I guess, the turning point from a physical standpoint, because what's now your trademark, really.
Yep.
But and I want to be delicate about it, as well, because discovering that you had alopecia, so how did that How did that happen, or how did it come about?
So, I mean, look, there's stress-related hair loss, which mine isn't. The stress-related is all patchy and takes a very long time. It's sort of on and off. Mine was autoimmune, or alopecia totalis or universalis. And we kind of trigger it down to, I was a tight-ass race car driver at 2002, 2003. I had a very old helmet, and I've always had quite sensitive skin, and I had a rash on my face that was quite persistent for about 6 months, and I'd take antibiotics, and as soon as it looked like it cleared up, I'd stop, and then it would keep coming back on, off, on, off. And what we think's ended up happening is that a hair follicles got infected quite deep inside, and the body's started attacking, which is why they call it autoimmune, the hair follicle, and within 3 weeks, the hair was gone from my head from when it started, and then, within a period of 2 months, I was completely hairless and totally smooth, and now have my trademark. So
saved you on like body waxing and all that sort of stuff. And hair
correct.
Stuff
so
too.
I can never have a bad haircut. I'll never go grey or have a receding hairline. But it was obviously quite a shock. And then my head was bright white when I first lost all my hair, and was my first year full time. And knowing how to deal with something like that, I mean, typically total hair loss or alopecia universalis happens in younger kids as your immune system's developing. Not so common in adults, but it was quite rapid, and a big shock to the system. I mean, immediately I hadn't heard about it before, and immediately I thought I was really sick. So you panic, and then mentally you're sort of not where you need to be. First year full time is very hard to concentrate in driving while all that's going on. Then you hear what people are saying, and so it was a tough period early on in that year. And then towards the end of the year, my results started to come back. But I think a fair bit of damage was done early on that year.
How did you knuckle down on all those stresses and really focus in to recover in the end of the year and put all of that behind you to show everyone, that what you were made of?
I guess it's one of those things that was quite unique. But I guess I have Erin there supporting me, and just push through it. I just thought, I'm not sick. There's worse things you can have in life. My career is still what I want to do, so I really just focused on being a driver and doing everything correctly and having the processes that work to help you get the results.
Yep. And so I'm going to be cheeky and ask the question now, because you've led us to that with your teammate with Paul Radicic.
Yeah.
So where did that all go wrong?
So when I first signed with Briggs for that full-time year, he wouldn't let me move up to Queensland to be part of the team. He goes, you'll come up here and you'll just party. But, I mean, I've had a strong work ethic. I got taught by my old man. He's a hard Italian. I'd finish a race meeting. I'd go back to Sydney, back into the panel shop and work 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And so Mark Dutton and Jeremy Moore were my engineer and data engineer that year. So... and later years on, I found out from one of them that in the debriefs and all that after race meetings, Radicic was like bad-mouthing me. I was behind Dean, saw him do this, and really just driving the knife in because he was threatened. But anyway, each their own. I was too soft as a driver and never really was aggro enough or really took things under control. So I can only blame myself for that. Never really had a mentor, but. It's the harsh part of motorsport. There's only this many seats and this many drivers trying to get in, and that's the way it is.
Yep. And so John Briggs obviously then transitioned into Triple Eight.
Yep.
And in between that period is when obviously you'd lost your full-time drive, but you did the Enduros with Triple Eight at that stage, but that was in the early days.
Yeah, so Roland kept me on for Enduros 2004. Yep. With Yvonne Muller, and then the following year I was back in development series with DJR. So it was good to be retained as an enduro driver with Triple Eight, obviously in their first year, and the cars at the end of that year were very strong. I mean, if you look at Bathurst 2004. Probably should have won it, but we had Yvonne beached it on the last corner on his last lap of his last stint, and we lost a lap, and the car was really, really quick. I think I started near the back of the field because we had an engine drama in warm-up, so put a new engine in it, so we had to take the penalty. And I think by the end of my second stint, I was second. Legitimately the fastest car that was there that day. But, once we lost the lap, I was just driving stupid and trying to come back through the field and had a moment at the elbow and made contact with the wall. But, that car that year was cool. It was fast.
So even back then, you could see the foundations of what made Triple Eight so good, even up to this point in time?
Yeah, definitely. It was, look, Dutto he's been there since day one for Briggs, which then changed into 888. And my first year in 2003 with him, we were both quite green, and, we'd finish a session and go, oh, what's the car doing? And instead of making calculated changes, I think we'd make 10 changes. So you never drove the same car, whereas obviously a year on, things are a lot better. They had Ludo and things like that. So, 888 has always been a well-polished team.
In that changing of ownership transition, I suppose, from Briggs to 888, was there any talk of you being retained as a full-time driver and not just kept for the Enduros?
I ended up after 2005, I had a chat with Roland, so the year that I think Jamie and I were both going for the seat at 888.
Wink up, not me.
Yeah, not you, mate. No, I think you were in the late years. Obviously the drive went to Jamie, but we were a fair way down the line. I had interviews with Ludo and Campbell that was there at the time. It's Jamie's a well-deserved champion, and he worked hard at it.
100% he did.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's about where the similarities
Can't take credit for the name, mate. Sorry.
I'll take credit for your turkey.
For the hat,
instead. I will. Yeah. So 05, DJR come knocking on your door. So how did that all start?
It was in spite of Luffy. So I think Warren Luff was driving for them full time in 2004, and he wasn't there again in 2005, and he was back in the development series with Crookshanks, I think. And Steve Chalker from DJR rang me up and said, we want to beat Luffy. Can we put you in the development series car and the Enduros with us? So, I didn't have a drive at that point. It was only going to be an Enduro drive with 888 potentially. So it was like, 4-year development series and drive with Cito in the Enduros. Sure.
Yep. It's not a bad resume though. I'll get to that after, because I'll run through the results. It's probably the most comprehensive flogging of a field I've ever seen. So
too easy.
We'll be back after the break. You're with Dean Canto on Negative Camber. Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. The turkey next to me is my host, Lee Harrison, and the superstar on my right is Dean Canto.
We must thank Erin. Shout out to Erin for listening and watching in at home. She's really started this passing of the turkey Christmas tradition.
Yep, who knows where it'll end up next.
Speaking of Erin, how did you guys meet? She's been your rock through a lot of stuff, really.
Yeah, look, she doesn't like the story about how we met, but we'll just say we met at a racetrack. Since 2003, she's been by my side and been with me. I had hair when we first met, and she stuck with me when I lost it all. So, she definitely has been a big supporter of me and got me through a lot of things, and always put herself aside for me throughout my whole career. I don't know how, or why. And, it's her turn now to obviously take on the business world and things like that. But, no, she's very driven. She's produced 2 beautiful kids, and, she runs a tight ship. But, I love her every day.
Yeah, no, good on her. A big shout out to Erin as well. So from all of us here, and also to our the man that runs the station, Dino Mussolino. Big shout out to you, my friend. We did get your message to say hello. So now, 2005 is what I call probably it's creme de la creme of championships. All right, so we'll go like this. You won 5 out of the 7 rounds you raced. You qualified on pole on 6 out of 7. All right. You won 9 out of the 10 races where you started on the front row grid, and then you won 10 races in total. All right. So the times that you were actually setting would have put you in the top 20 of the main game grid, and you actually had 100 kilo extra weight on the car as well. So you set new lap records at Adelaide, Wakefield Park. They were qualifying lap records as well for the Clipsal and also the Queensland rounds. And you were the first ever driver to win 2 titles in the Konica series, I think it was still known as back then.
HPDC, Holden Performance Driving Centre, because it was mostly forwards in the category, I think.
Yeah. That's a pretty kick-ass CV for a season, mate. You couldn't have asked for anything better than that.
Yeah, look, it started off well. Not so much at Wakefield, because that was the first ever reverse grid race. So race 2 started at the rear of the grid because we won the first one. And in all my racing career, I've never come across a stall car and never even crossed my mind. But I remember taking off. I was right behind Tony D'Alberto, and we were kind of we were against Warren Luff that year because he was second at Clipsal, and he was off to my left. So we've taken off. I got a reasonable jump on Tony, so I was quite close to him. I looked over at Luffy, and Luffy sort of moved left. I was like, what's going on with him? And then looked at Tony, and then Tony just went hard right. I was like, gotcha. Stalled car straight into the back of Jay Verdnick, I think it was.
Yep.
And put us out for the weekend. So didn't do 2 races that weekend out of the 3. And had to fight back for the rest of the year. But look, I mean, obviously, DJR produced a great car for me, but I was very focused and was always obviously trying to get back into the main game. So I knew lap times were important and consistency and things like that. So Wakefield didn't do any favours, and then I remember Roland asking me, because at the Queensland round in the reverse grid race, I was coming back through the field. Last corner, I went up the inside of Luffy and he squeezed me and I locked the rears, and Roland said, why'd you do that? You know, because obviously Roland's all about finishing races to get the points to win the championship, Prost mentality. And, obviously that was just a small mistake that year that sort of probably could have sped up the way of getting back to the top. And then the God shone on me at Malala. We had... Oh, hang on, that was a different... No, that was a year Macro and someone else. And Luffy went off into the dirt there on the oil. So
it was at the end of the back straight.
At the end of the back straight, yeah, that's right. It's been too many years. I've done too much driving. Sorry, but no, that's right. I remember coming out of the back hairpin there, seeing a whole heap of smoke from Macro's car, and I was behind Luffy. And I backed off because I was like, oh, that's a lot of oil. And Luffy was still going hell deep into the next corner, and off they went. And I remember Lee jumping on the radio at the end of that race saying, oh, you're back in the lead of the championship. I was like, oh, cool. But, definitely that year was obviously a strong year for us. We still had to fight for it, but, it was a pretty strong year, and it was good to, be the first to win 2 championships.
Yeah, and then you finished that off with the top 10 at Bathurst with Glenn, with DJR as well.
Yeah, it could have gone better. We were fighting an electrical drama with the throttle position sensor that year, and I was behind Andy Jones, I think, quite frustrated because any time you went to go near full throttle, it would misfire and things like that. And I went to pass him at Forest Elbow, and we always know that not always two people into Forest Elbow work, and we touched and it bent the steering, so we lost time changing a steering rod, but... we weren't going to win that year, but still managed to finish.
Yep, top 10's a top 10.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to win it.
Only in it to win it.
Yeah, exactly.
Bathurst is all about, you look how many times Triple Eight have rolled the dice. You only go there to win.
Yeah, 100%. So 05 comes around and GRM come knocking on your door. All right, so how did that all eventuate as well?
So I think that year Andy Jones was driving with them full-time. And then Gary got me to do the last 2 rounds, Tassie, somewhere else. Can you refresh my memory?
Tassie and
New Zealand.
New Zealand, Pukekohe.
Yeah. And obviously after, and Gold Coast. I did Gold Coast as well with them that year.
Yep.
And I remember the mechanics after the first qualifying saying, the car's never been up this high all year. I was like, okay, whatever. So again, it was just... hopping in, doing as best as I could, and then Gary signed me up. First year with GRM was okay. And then the second year was a new car. I had the new car built for me.
Which is we're going from VZ to VE.
VE, yep. And anyway, at first we did 2 test days back-to-back with the new car. And it was rushed. It wasn't really 100% ready, but anyway, went out to these 2 test days. I remember in the workshop before we left, the steering wheel was really high, and they said, we can't lower it anymore because we don't have a knuckle halfway down the steering column, so that's where it is. And I was like, righto. So a couple of days before the test day, I literally got a hacksaw and took the top of the steering wheel off so I could see. And didn't have a footrest, so quickly they pop riveted a footrest on the firewall. Anyway, so went through the first test day, and you could go through a corner, let go of the steering wheel, and the steering wheel would stay there because all the bushings and everything were jamming up in the steering column. Anyway, end of the first day, they pulled the column out, got a die grinder in there, a bit of bush mechanic stuff. Yep. And anyway, got through that first day. The second test day, the car was doing some really weird stuff, stuff that you sort of don't experience normally. So second test day, I was like, it's doing this to the engineer. And mind you, the engineer I had wasn't a full-time engineer. He was a mate of Gary's. He was a motorbike guy. I think he was his background, and a shop guy. And he would literally just come away for the weekends and to race meetings and test days. But I said, it's doing this, so he goes, oh, we'll do this for the change. I was like, yeah, I agree. So he did the roll centre change. Back then we had just the quick roll centre change. Yep. And, man, I spun at the sweeper at Winton so many times, like turned in, backwards, car was going backwards before I even got there. Said it was worse. He goes, it can't be, go more. Spun again, and it just kept getting worse and worse, and then we were doing other things to try and settle the car down. And we ended up getting the car okay, but yeah, still wasn't ideal. So we came back to the workshop after the 2 days. Ended up being that the sticker was the wrong way around on the window for the roll centre.
Oh, no.
But, this is what happens with inexperienced mechanics or amateur mechanics is they don't double-check things, and they just blame other people. But anyway, the stick was on the wrong way, so instead of going down with the roll centre, it went up, which makes the car turn in really good, which is why I was turning into the sweeper and coming in backwards. But, so my feedback was correct. But
Did that muck around with your head, though?
It was frustrating because we wasted 2 days, and I was like, well, this car isn't where it needs to be. So then we went to the first round at Adelaide. And you also lose trust in the guys working on the car. You think, well, is it prepped right? But I probably should have taken it on myself more to take a bit of control. But anyway, so I went to Adelaide, and man, this thing was a handful. I remember going into the braking zone, and normally when you start turning into a right-hand corner, you have the right front wheel lock, and it was locking the opposite side, and it was doing some weird stuff. So we went through the first however many rounds, went to New Zealand, and came into the last little section there, and I was like, oh, the brake pedal went just a little bit long on that second last corner, and came into the last corner, left front wheel came loose, cut through the rim, sent me into the wall, and Gary blamed me. He goes, oh, you should have known that it was going to come loose. I was like, okay, well, no worries. Yeah, I can predict when a wheel nut's going to come off. So he had the shits with me basically for the rest of that year because it wasn't having any results. So after New Zealand, had a big rebuild. And it turns out, I found out like just after New Zealand that the number 2 mechanic said, oh, every time we went from the workshop to the track, they have a different set of corner scales. It was always like 150 kilos out across the front axle compared to the workshop. Normally, maybe 2 or 3. Yep. So over Christmas that year, when they built the VE, they painted the floors, put the patches back where they thought they were, but they never re-centered them and leveled them. So when they built this new car and tried to do all the corner weights, I don't know how it didn't click, but they're going, oh, we put lead and we couldn't get it corner weighted properly. It was really, really weird. So yeah, I did like the first 5 rounds with this car that had corner weights that were just nowhere near correct. So that really hurt my confidence because I didn't know for that first 5 rounds that the car was no good. I just thought, oh, is it me? And Lee obviously hopped in my car from the year before and was having strong results. Anyway, I got through the rest of that year, and I think I just sort of rolled around and didn't really have strong results. I was near Paul Morris a lot, which was not great. And that year was also the year where you only got a point up until 15th on the grid. Yep. So that's where our cars were. Mm-hmm. And man, to get that extra point or to get that point, what went on in that space and how much you ran into each other and to just try and get there, it was very tough. So yeah, that wasn't a great year for me. Finished 1 spot behind Lee in the championship the year that year, even with an average car to start with. I heard some people saying, oh, I think Gary's going to get rid of you. I had a 3-year deal with him. Asked him, towards the end of the year, I said, oh, we all still good? Like, just need to make sure. Yeah, all good. Not happy, but all good. And basically, midway through December, he called me into the workshop, said, I'm getting rid of you, got someone else. Unless you can get 200 grand together, he's bringing 500, I'll keep you. I was like, I don't have that, you're paying me at the moment. So he goes, oh, grab your stuff and away you go. Yep. And it was like, well, thanks for that, because all the other full-time drivers are gone already. Mm-hmm. So he really stooged me.
Yep. Well, 06 was actually a good year because that's when we met. I became a GRM fan member at the 500. and we did the pit tour and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So there I was, stargazing, fanboy moment. And then we met again at Bathurst that year too. But you could tell, like, I look back on it now, and you know, meeting you and all that sort of stuff was awesome. But you could tell that your head was in another place, and now the story's there. It makes sense. So, but we're going to go to a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk Bathurst and Tickford and heartbreak and everything else in between. So
easy.
You're listening to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show with Jamie, Lee and Dean. Welcome back to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show with Jamie and Lee. We've got Dean Cantor here, and we also have the turkey now on my helmet. So it's probably next we'll make it onto Andrea's replica as well by the end of the break. So we're at Tickford now, back in enduro mode, and this is starting in 2008 when you sort of teamed up with Jordan.
Yep.
And I guess that the real highlight was your stint with Dave Reynolds and yet that time there. Because
why do you say that?
Well, results were good.
Results were the best.
The results were the best.
Few trophies in that time.
But you actually almost became the two of you became almost this combination that were probably nearly the most feared on the track. Like you were always going to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, well, if you go back before Dave was there, actually, before Dave got the drive, it was actually quite close between Dave and myself because it was Rod Nash's team at that point in time. It was a satellite team. One of the team manager had a soft spot for Dave. He'd worked with Dave at Walkinshaw, and Dave got the drive. But look, Dave's an accomplished driver as well. He deserved it as much as I did. But I became the enduro driver for them. I was the enduro driver with Tickford from 2008. Did it with Rod Nash under Tickford for a couple of years.
Yep.
And then that clown came along. We had a weird, good relationship. I guess I succumbed to, I'm just an enduro driver, but had fun with it. I actually found a good place just being able to come and go, look, my preparation going into each of those races was really good, and hopped in the car, was comfortably in their car, comfortably in the environment with the team, and not comfortable in my seating position because I never am. I'm always the shortest guy out there.
Yep.
And even with Dave and the seat insert that I had, full throttle is still on tippy toes, and same with the clutch. But I managed to get through it all. And look, Dave and I had some success, some heartbreak, and some controversy.
That just comes with the relationship of the both of you, though. Really, like you're both a bit, as we've seen with the introduction of the turkey hat into the show, the larrikinisms flowing freely, and I think you and Dave together were always going to bring controversy along.
He doesn't need encouragement.
Neither do you.
No. So I'll leave you to ask questions.
All right. Well, let's go with the highlight, which was 2012. I remember the after party at the highway that night as well, which was really cool. I still cherish that photo.
Yeah.
But that race was when Tickford had the best sounding cars on the grid too. I love the exhaust note of that. I was watching the replay of that race when they had the Bathurst channel a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
What can you recall, outside of standing on the podium, about that event and what made it so special for you?
Look, I for starters, that car looked cool before the event. I was like, that's one of the coolest retro liveries I've seen. And that was last year of the old generation car, but Tickford were quite strong, but Bathurst was always a strong track for myself and for Dave.
Yep.
The car was strong all weekend. Sunday came, and we were just there. We're there. Obviously, at the end, we just weren't there, but Dave actually had a delaminated tyre when he was behind Whincup for the last couple of laps, so Jamie could sort of get away with him. And Bathurst is a hard place to pass at the best of times, but it was a good day. But no one ever remembers the person that came second.
How did it feel though? You crossed the line, right? You've missed out on winning the race by half a second. What was the feeling for you after that?
I guess Cedo's probably someone I can compare notes with because he's never had a win there after all his years, and he's been close, but. I guess at that point I was still like, I'm going to come back, have more opportunities. But, an opportunity like that, you're like, if only we did this, if we short field, which Triple Eight did on the last pit stop. I think Tickford was still very conservative with their last pit stops and didn't roll the dice. They were like, we need to finish. It's like, you got to win. And we probably could have short filled. We had a faster car. If we were in front in the last stop,
You're good.
I'd have a trophy at home that said first place. But you learn from that sort of stuff, or you hope you learn from that stuff.
Yep.
That was that year, but we tried to come back and do it again.
The results with Dave were probably the best of your co-driving career. Do you attribute that to a good relationship on and off track with Dave and the team, or were there other factors at play in that?
I think a lot was myself. I matured a lot. I thought about my driving a lot more as a process. I knew how to play the game on the times and in the consistency. So if you look at there's a spreadsheet that most teams do, co-driver versus main driver. Even if the car wasn't quick, I was always at the top of the list when you compare yourself to the main driver. So I think a bit of maturity and then experience started to come from my side with strategy and things like that. And obviously the cars were reasonable as well, and it was a strong team. If anything, 2013 hurts the most at Bathurst, if you ask my engineer and myself. We were out in front and a safety car got called as Dave was at pit entry. This is probably halfway through the race.
Yep.
And he couldn't make it in. As he came around turn one, the safety car got him.
Yep.
Everyone else pitted, came out behind us. For the rest of the race, we were nowhere. So 13 hurt because when you've got a fast car there and you can't use it or you get screwed over, I'm sure Lewis Hammer can attend to that after the weekend.
Don't start on that. I've got to ask, 2014, there was a documentary that Fox released a couple of years ago detailing about that race.
Yep.
And I've never seen you get emotional, right? But on camera it got you.
Yeah.
Right. And feel free to cry, all right?
I've had two kids, mate. My emotions are bad these days. Yeah.
I second that.
Yeah.
Mate, that's probably the unluckiest. That was you had it in the bag tactically.
Yeah, I don't think we had the quickest car. We started second last because Dave crashed in quali.
Just about wrote the car off though, didn't he?
Yeah. The wheel overtook him over Reed Park, I think. It wasn't ideal. I remember the front end, the front chassis rail was compromised. The boys patched it up. But, look, you can get a lot of adjustability. So we did warm up. They had to put a whole new fuel tank in because the shell got compromised on the other one. So when we did warm up, all the fuel pumps, because it was a second-hand tank, all seized up. So we actually didn't do much running in warm up. We went into the race. I started, came through a little bit in that first stint. And, we managed to keep chipping away through the day. Sort of managed to we were on the alternate strategy with drivers, so Dave moved up through the co-drivers. I could always go with the main drivers on pace, and then we were obviously at the front with a reasonably fast car at that point. And I remember coming through the chase and seeing a red flag out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, on the radio I said, "Was that a red flag?" And it was like, yeah, that's a red flag. And I said, "It's not for the gravel, is it? Or the loose surface?" And I was like, "Of course it was." So stop on the main straight and have a halftime break, I guess it was.
Yep.
Obviously, had we known that there was an issue with the alternator at that point in time, we probably would have changed it.
So you didn't know at that stage?
No, nothing was showing up or no one was looking closely enough at it.
Yep.
But what they think damaged the alternator potentially was when they were doing all the chassis repairs and welding some stuff up, they think that might have done some electrical damage to the alternator, potentially. They don't really know, but... Yeah, we got further back into the race, the restart happened, and we were still there for a little bit, and then the engineers were going, "Oh, we've got problems with the alternator." Turned the switch to maximum charge, because back then you could turn it down or up. Yep. Turned it up to maximum, and then it dropped. I was like, "Oh, we're done."
Yeah. The most heartbreaking scene is that moment where, I think it was Channel 7 at the time, went into the pit area. And you were just despondent. And I'm watching the race, and that was it. Threw the control away. I was like, "Bugger this, I'm done. That's it, driver done for the day." That would have hurt.
Yeah, look, I don't think you can't predict, but after starting last and working our way up there, I was like, having a good day, but that's Bathurst.
That's Bathurst,
mate.
Yeah.
Everyone's cried there.
Yeah.
Scott McLaughlin's crashed, he cried. I remember Gary that year after I cried. He's going, "No, you don't need to cry." Then Scott McLaughlin crashed, I think, at the cutting.
Yep.
And Scotty's crying. Bathurst, everyone wants to win it. Your heart's on the line.
Van Gisbergen had the same thing with his battery not starting or car not starting after a pit stop. So it can come back to bite you, and that's what makes the race, I guess, so special to win, but also so heartbreaking to lose.
The race is designed to make you cry. So we're going to be off to a break, and then when we come back, we'll start reviewing the Formula One season, or the final, speaking of heartbreak, at Abu Dhabi. You're listening to Jamie and Lee and Dean Cantor on Negative Camber. Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. Alongside me is Lee Harrison and Dean Canto. So the announcement was made today after, I'll make claim we called for it, considering the calendar was released the other week, that the Bend is now on the V8 Supercars calendar in July. What were your thoughts on that, considering you're a custodian?
Look, it's great to have supercars back here, obviously Australia's premier category, and the Bend's a world-class facility. It's a great driver's track, extremely hard to pass on, but if you do a great lap time there as a driver, it's very rewarding, and you've done a good job.
What do you think of the developments of the Bend, actually, and all the effort and stuff put in by the Shahins to bring something like that to South Australia?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's hats off to them. It's world class, and I mean, I go there that often that I don't see the progress, because it doesn't happen as quick as when you're going there every week. But as you're driving there now, you've got all the tree line and everything else. It's looking a lot more presentable.
Yep.
Obviously, the location was quite tough to get things to grow and things like that. But no, they're obviously always pushing, and things are growing slowly. There's lots of interest in the place. Obviously, in the last 2 years, have hampered that with travel restrictions and things like that. So, I wish them all the best success with it. Personally, I need it to be successful so I can go there. But it's great to have something like that in our backyard, and I'm really thankful for them to build it.
Well, speaking of building, we built up to an anticlimax in the Formula One season. And we'll start with, I guess, a quick overview of the Jeddah circuit in Saudi Arabia, which was held on the 5th of December. So top 10 was Lewis Hamilton first, Max Verstappen second, Valtteri Bottas third, Esteban Ocon fourth, Daniel Ricciardo fifth, Pierre Gasly sixth, Leclerc and Sainz in 7th and 8th, Giovinazzi in 9th, and Lando Norris in 10th. Biggest takeaway from that was the looseness of Max's driving, largely because of, I think, the FIA being too lenient on how they adjudicated Brazil when he was a loose cannon on that event.
Yeah, it's so hard. Every time we have these, they let that one slide. It's such a unique thing to look at each time that something happens, and you're going to exploit it as a driver if you can. So until you get called up on it, or they make a definite rule, I mean, we're racers at the end of the day, so it's a hard thing, because you don't want to stop passing and things like that. You don't want it to be a freight train. So you do need to obviously make sure you're fair about it. But obviously, yes, he was aggressive, but hey, it's motorsport, and until you get told not to, you're going to try your hardest to, everyone's fighting for a championship at that point in time, and I guess that was the end result of it.
And you're going to push harder and harder those limits as a racer, and fair play to Massey, who's let them race and has maybe not been as strict as he should have been with the limits, but look, they're race car drivers, like you said, and I think the racing's been so entertaining to watch this year. It's just been stepped up to another level, and you can see that from the television ratings that, every broadcaster that broadcasts television is saying they're having their highest rating year in Formula One.
Oh, look, I guess for me, I've always been one of a purist in regards to clean racing. And I look at the old days, so let's have a look at, say, 79 with that battle of Villeneuve and René Arnoux. And that's always considered to be the quintessential classic on-track battle. Yeah. But then they're banging wheels, they're running each other off the track, and that type of thing, and then it's seen as legendary. Whereas you go to Jeddah, and all of a sudden it's an outcry. So where has the line been drawn on what's unacceptable?
There's a different style of racing now, as we touched on earlier with Jeremy, and he was saying as everything's evolved, everyone's got less time to do things. So the passes, you're getting from corner A to corner B in far less time than you used to be. So you've got far less time to set up a pass, you've got far less time to react to a pass being made, you've got far less time to avoid an incident. So as the cars have evolved, the tracks haven't evolved with them to allow the passes to be set up properly, which is why we've now as well got artificial intelligence like DRS and all that sort of stuff as well come in. So maybe the cars and bikes are getting too fast.
But you also have a look at the size of an F1 car now. It's a bus.
Yeah.
It's not, while it's in a straight line and lap times are fast, yes, you've got lots of downforce, but like you said, when you look at Monaco, and they only just fit in there now, whereas they were half the size in the past. And coming into a corner slower, obviously things are going to happen a lot slower. But yeah, now once you've committed, something's going to happen. So a split-second decision, and then we have an end result of contact, things like that, or someone running with someone off the road. But yeah, it's very hard to, each situation has to be looked at individually.
Esteban Ocon was very unlucky for that meet. Alpine had sort of really shown some form for that race, and to be beaten on the line by Valtteri would have been a bit of pill to swallow.
Yeah, so you should have been on the podium, but again, he was lucky to be up there as well with the way the red flags and stuff worked out for him. So you got to take your wins with your losses, and a fourth for Alpine is still an amazing result.
Yeah. What's been your takeaway from, say, Alonso's comeback this year?
Age has got nothing to do with it. Experience counts for a lot. So, look, Alonso's always been a standout hard driver. You look at his first laps, and he's just amazing. So, yeah, he would be a good, solid person to have in that team for leadership and bringing his knowledge across. So, you can't keep someone like that down. It's pretty impressive to see him come back and be as strong as he is. Yep. And he's having a ball from the sounds of it. Yeah,
100%. And then, of course, we had Ferrari with Sainz in particular continuing their scoring run, but Ricciardo finishing fifth had kind of closed the gap a little bit.
Yeah, but it's still nailed Ferrari being almost unbeatable come Yas Marina for the third place in the Constructors' Championship. Both McLarens sort of needed to score big points to close that gap down, and they really didn't. So it left the door open for Ferrari to capitalise on that and secure third place. Yeah.
Speaking of Yas Marina, we then ventured to the championship finale for the Chandok edition of the Yas Marina circuit. What did you guys think of the modifications?
I didn't mind it. Again, the corners were still too fast and too open, so it didn't really change much with the way the racing transpired. If it wasn't for alternate strategies, there wasn't really too much more passing other than the first couple of laps and after a restart.
So stating the obvious, everyone knows the result, but we'll go through it again. Max Verstappen first, controversially, winning the World Championship, followed by Lewis Hamilton second. My boy, Carlos Sainz third. See? Brains. Tsunoda finishing fourth, that was for biscuits. Pierre Gasly fifth, Bottas sixth, Lando Norris seventh, Fernando Alonso eighth, Esteban Ocon ninth, and Charles Leclerc 10th. Now, before I speak to Motorsport Australia here on my left, I want to speak to a professional racing driver.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway from that race?
Mercedes should have pitted Hamilton and put softs on.
You reckon?
Yep.
When?
Because that last safety car.
You would have taken the gamble?
Yeah, because Verstappen would have followed him in, guaranteed. Because you couldn't... I know it's a tough decision, but you would think that it wouldn't restart, but you can't... I don't know. It was such a tough thing, but I still think they were silly for not pitting, because that would have forced... Red Bull wouldn't have gone, ooh, we're going to stay out. They would have gone in as well to give him every chance to be on the same tyre if there was a restart.
Lee Massey?
Look, I agree that Mercedes should have pitted. I think on the flip, Red Bull would have stayed out though, because then they had the track position and the championship was won. And I think they would have been quite comfortable in the fact that had push come to shove, with an overtake coming from Hamilton on the last lap, shove would have probably ensured, and they would have won the World Championship still. But in respect of that as well, I think the timing of the safety car being called might have screwed Lewis there. I think when they called the safety car, he was actually just gone past the commitment stage of the pit lane, so he couldn't actually pit. And then Mercedes' hands were tied. If they'd pitted once the field had compressed, he would have lost third, fourth, fifth even. So then he would have been no-show. So they were kind of, damned if they did, damned if they didn't. They had the track position and just had to hope that they either thought it was going to finish under safety car conditions or it was going to be red flagged, and they would get that free pit stop like so many others had through the season.
Yeah, I don't think you could have scripted the end result. It was, it's a tough one in any way you look at it. Whether it's right or wrong, the way it all transpired. I don't think anyone's got an answer for it. Controversial or not, it's happened. If it was a restart and there was more laps, Max would have got it and we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yep.
So, yes, the way the restart happened wasn't by the rule book and what they let through, but they went racing. If it finished under safety car, it's like, oh, well, he won by default. If there was 3 more laps of racing, Max would have won anyway.
It sort of happened by the rule book. There is the rule that, you know, the restart should occur 1 lap after the cars that are unlapping themselves have passed the safety car, but then there's a sub-rule that says that the race director can have overarching authority on the procedure in which the safety car takes place. So, look, I don't know how much smarts Massey had about him, but to only let the cars through between Lewis and Max only had direct result on their positioning in the championship. No other positions were being fought over in terms of who was going to get third in the constructors, who was going to be 4th or 5th or 6th in the championship race. It was literally just that one crescendo that needed to finish. And I think Massey did a stellar job of controlling that outcome and giving the fans what the Formula One finale deserved.
My God, you guys make me want to drown my head in the toilet. It's gee, you're okay. You're all right.
Look, I mean, you know, I feel for Lewis because he'd driven a very good race.
Yeah.
We've all been on the bad end of a stick at some point. It was a great championship battle. I was camping on the weekend in York Peninsula up on the beach, and Dylan and I were in bed of the camper. Erin and my other son were asleep, and we're on our iPads watching and going, wow. So I reckon everyone was glued to their screen. It'll be one that's talked about for the ages, but...
I nearly fell asleep. There was 6 laps to go, and I thought, oh, this is over. I went to shut my laptop, and then just before it got to the point where you've gone too far, bang, Latifi's in the wall. I was like, oh, man, I guess we're staying up.
Yeah.
And then I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning reading and listening to all of the reports and stuff that were getting put out.
Look, they both deserved the championship.
Yep. Someone had to lose it.
Yep. Well, speaking of losing it, we'll go through winners and losers after the break, and then maybe I might just vent my spleen about how incompetent the FIA were. So we're off to a break. This is Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show with Jamie, Lee and Dean. Welcome back to Negative Camber, the Motorsport Show with Jamie, Lean, Lean? Yeah, Lean. And Dean. See, I got you both confused. Bloody hell.
If we were a couple, that would be our name.
Yes. Still time. Sorry, Aaron and Shay. There's still time.
Definitely bromance between you. We'll call yourselves Lean. There you go. Winners and losers is our one of our final segments for the year. And I'm going to start I've done Abu Dhabi. So I'll start with winner and loser. Max Verstappen was comprehensively beaten for the whole race until the last 6 laps. A nothing to lose tyre strategy from Red Bull and then a gift from the FIA provided Max with the formality, world champion. Statistically though, it is a deserved title. However, this race and how it was decided will very much decide and force people to think that it was luck and robbery at the end more so than good driving that got the title.
And most of those people that think that way would be one-eyed Lewis Hamilton supporters, unfortunately.
Lucky I go for Sainz and Sebastian. Next year is the year to prove that this year was not a fluke, providing that Red Bull come out with a good car. So did you know? First Netherlands win for a world champion. First non-Mercedes driver in the hybrid era. First Honda title since Senna in 1991. It's the 3rd time in Max's career that he took the triple, which was the win, the pole, and the fastest lap, while all of his podiums were either first or second places, which resulted in 18 consecutive races of first and seconds, which was actually eclipsed Lewis's record set 4 times of 17 in 2015, 16, 18, 19.
Good stats.
Another one. All right, loser.
Done your homework. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, man. Lewis, loser. Commanded the race up until the safety car, even made Red Bull look like has-beens. Was set to take his 4th straight win, an 8th world title until the safety car. Nothing he could do, in second place it was. Remarkable fight back with the championship, but now has an uncertain future because I don't know how he's going to come back from something like that.
He's a racer. He'll be back.
Quite simply, he's going to put the helmet on and he's going to get in the car and everything from this year will be forgotten and he'll be focused on winning next year.
I'm pretty sure Lee Holdsworth said, Enduro, full-time drive. Yeah, I'll do the full-time drive,
Yeah, exactly.
That was actually really cool. I'm so happy for him, man. It was really well deserved.
Well done.
For Lee, loser, Kimi. Not the way to end your career in Formula One. When asked, the end result doesn't matter. It's the end now and I'm looking forward to it.
That's probably the worst Kimi impression I've heard ever. But thanks. Yeah, it was a pretty crap way for Kimi to end and not even make the half race distance. But hey, I'm looking forward to whatever he does next. Hopefully it's got 4 wheels and a motor and we can see him around. I know he's going to be looking after Robin a fair bit, getting him into go-karting. So maybe we'll see him as the dad mechanic on the side of the track.
What are your thoughts on Kimi? You're a bit of a Kimi fan?
Yeah, look, I mean, he's a racer. He's like he reminds, or Steve Owen, very, very much similar sort of thing. Steve Owen would be in a press conference with the hat on and sunnies and not say much, so, and the same dry sense of humour. So, no, Kimi's obviously been world champion and he's driven for all the teams, but sad to see him go. But he's a father and he wants to spend time with his kids and. Hats off to him, and he might be breeding the next Max Verstappen. So, all the best to him, and I'm sure he'll still drive and pop up here and there.
Did you know he had 21 wins, 103 podiums, and 18 pole positions? Colt figure, champion. Sad to see him go on. Winner, my boy, Carlos Sainz. So secured his 4th podium of the year with P3. And having scored in the final 15 Grand Prix of the season, the result lifted him to 5th overall in the drivers' standings ahead of Charles Leclerc. So between him and Charles, it secured Ferrari's 4th place in the Constructors' Championship as best of the rest. No, third. Third place in the Constructors' Championship as best of the rest. And he only failed to score twice in 22 races for this year.
I saw an interesting stat the other day that all of Sainz's podiums, or Sainz always seems to get a podium when there's some other sort of controversy going on, so it takes the shine off of his podium. So obviously he had the podium at Abu Dhabi. I'm trying to think of some other ones straight off the top of my head, but it's getting late in the night. I know Silverstone, he was on the podium when we had the Max and Lewis incident. There was some the Russian race when all hell broke loose at the end, he scored a podium. So, Carlos is there to capitalise, and that's what makes him a good driver for your team.
And my final winner, Yuki Tsunoda. Made a breakthrough in terms of confidence in the latter half of the season and has yielded 5 Q3 appearances in the last 6 races.
Yes.
Racecraft in Abu Dhabi was exceptional, especially with that battle against Fernando, but then also pulled off what I feel is the overtake of the year on Valtteri Bottas on the last lap of the race.
But people call that the overtake of the year, and if you look back at that versus Hamilton and Verstappen, they're so similar. So why are people calling Tsunoda's last lap dive on Bottas the move of the year? But it looks, if you look at it, it looks so similar to Hamilton and Verstappen.
Bottas stayed on track, Lewis didn't. There you go.
Yeah, maybe Lewis needs to look at himself then.
And that's the end of winners and losers for 2021.
One final question for Dean before we wrap up. We didn't get to touch on it, but you have your eye cast on a lot of the young drivers coming up through the field. Have you got anyone in your eyes that you think that guy is going places and he's going to be the next one to make it?
In what category?
Any category.
Any category.
So obviously not in supercars yet, but you think, look, they're the next one that's going to be a household name in, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, look, if you're looking just locally in Australia, or we've got Piastri, obviously, overseas has been doing great throughout his whole career, and he's got a lot of support in Australia and backers, and he well deserves it. In Australia, I think what you should probably look at really is Cup Car. It's produced so many champions. We've got Matt Campbell, Jackson Evans, and because it's such a controlled category. So I'm looking forward next year to seeing the new 992 out there on track. It's an awesome looking car. It's a hell of a lot quicker. And I think that's probably one championship that seems to keep breeding champions. So I think our Australian representative this year just missed out on getting the Academy. But I think that's one category you always need to keep an eye on, and it definitely breeds champions.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's the end of us for 2021 for our debut year. It's been an absolute blast and a pleasure. I hope everyone enjoyed the 3-hour extravaganza. Dean, mate, it's been awesome to have you on. It's been good to catch up again, actually, mate. So, you two can continue the bromance off screen after that. But
what happens off camera stays off camera.
But we will be back. Thank you very, very much to all at Radio Italia Uno, Ron and Karen from Podcast City, Mark Aston, the General Manager, and Dino for believing in us, and all of our friends and family that have supported us this year as well. We hope you've enjoyed season 1 of Negative Canberra, and we look forward to seeing you guys next year, probably from February, I reckon.
Sounds good to me. We'll see everyone then.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. Drive safe and enjoy your holidays as well. Good night.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.